Hello, everybody, and happy Super Bowl week. You are tuned in to the Couch GMs podcast. I'm your host, George Kerth, here with the other two members of the NFL's podcast division winner, Tyler Snyder.
How's it going, everybody?
And Cody Roadcap.
What is up, everyone? Thanks again for tuning in to another episode of the Couch GMs podcast. George, Tyler, and myself are three best friends who love talking football, and it's the biggest game of the year, so we're going to talk about it and not debate why the day after should be a holiday.
If you're wondering what to expect from this show, well, we're going to give you the biggest headlines from last week, an in-depth Super Bowl preview, and we're just going to have some fun debating some of the best Super Bowl commercials of all time.
And we want you to get involved with our debates and really anything we talk about on the podcast as well. We are on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at the Couch GMs. So before we talk big game, why don't we go into a little bit of what we missed in last week's headlines. And first, coaching updates for you. The Texans did finally find their head coach, and it was not Eric Bieniemy. He is stoned yet again. But it is David Culley, the assistant head coach of the Baltimore Ravens. What do you guys think of this move?
Well, we mentioned him last week, and then we all talked about how we thought Leslie Frazier was going to get the job out of those two, and surprise, surprise, the Texans did what no one expected. Yeah, David Culley, he doesn't really move the needle for me. Obviously, I don't know him personally. You know, with the league so much into the young head coaches, the innovators, a 65-year-old guy who's never been a head coach, with already a quarterback that doesn't really like the team, doesn't seem like it's a guy he wants. I definitely think Deshaun Watson is not a fan of this hire. I think the Texans just keep digging themselves a bigger hole.
Yeah, I would say that the only way that he can actually get worse than Bill O'Brien is if he went out and traded Deshaun Watson, because O'Brien's always going to be known as the guy who traded away Hopkins. But, you know, the way that Watson is treating this whole situation, that might very well happen. And, you know, this is a really interesting hire of David Culley, but honestly, with a franchise quarterback that doesn't want to play there, no real key pieces in the offense or defense around him. You have J.J. Watt that wants to leave. You have no first-round picks. With all of that being said, what big-name coach would honestly want to come and take over this job? The only good thing about this job is the fact that you have to be given some sort of a grace saying, we know you're not going to be good for the next couple of years. You have time to build this team up. But even then, no coach ever wants to have that horrible blemish to their record to start off a new team, a new coach.
I agree. I was actually going to say the same exact thing, Tyler. And that's why I thought one of the young guns that just wanted to get head coaching experience would have wanted to go there. But I don't know if David Culley would have gotten any other offers anywhere else. So it was smart for him to jump at the opportunity, and he impressed him enough to get it. But the thing that makes it interesting to me, and I know that this can be skewed because we talked about Matt LaFleur going from a 29th ranked offense to a now solid head coach. Culley was the wide receivers coach for the Kansas City Chiefs the year that they had a wide receiver scored 0 touchdowns. He was also not just the assistant head coach for the Ravens, but the passing game coordinator for one of the worst passing offenses in the league. So maybe he'll pull a Matt LaFleur and end up being a solid head coach. I mean, I don't think right away because obviously they're a mess of a team right now, but it's a tough sell for me too.
Couldn't agree more. And, you know, speaking of Matt LaFleur, he shook things up this past week after the Packers lost in the NFC Championship game. They decided to move on from both the defensive coordinator, Mike Pettin, and special teams coordinator, Sean Menenga. You know, it's not very often we see a championship team making some drastic coaching changes, but as a Packers fans, I think they're definitely well worth it, and hopefully the team comes out better on the other side.
And, you know, we said it ourselves after the Packers at the end of the half, on the last play of the half, just played cover one man and allowed that easy touchdown for the Bucs, which was a huge momentum changer. Ever since that one play, we've been saying Pettin needs to go. Now, obviously, he's had some blemishes on his record this season. In general, they could not stop the run in any game, basically. They weren't one of the better defenses, but that play right there said that he needed to go, and I think it's a great move by the Packers.
Absolutely. You know, and there's a lot of good candidates out there. You know, the Packers are taking their time. They're going to interview a bunch of people. I don't have a front runner on who I'd like to see be the Packers defensive coordinator. It's just as long as they're aggressive, get the cornerbacks not to play 10 yards off 3rd and 3. You know, maybe attempt to stop the run. Like our best game against the run was probably against Derrick Henry, but he still had 98 yards. So we slowed him down, I guess. But yeah, a change in attitude. We have the pieces with Jair Alexander and Za'Darius Smith and Adrian Amos and Kenny Clark. A lot of good pieces. I'm sure there's a lot of coaches out there that would like this job, and they're going to be on a team that's going to be competing for the years to come.
Well, I remember a game in the middle of the season where you had a bold prediction thrown out there that the Lions head coach would get fired after a game with the Packers, and the Lions lit them up so bad that you thought Penton was getting fired then. So I think you saw this coming way before the playoffs happened. But going back to Detroit made a blockbuster move this week. I don't think anybody saw it coming, where they traded Matthew Stafford to the Rams and got Jared Goff back. I want to see what you guys' thoughts are on both teams and what they got back, and who do you think is going to be more successful?
So I'm a little clarification for which team will be more successful out of the trade, or which player of the Goff Stafford is going to be more successful.
Let's go with which quarterback's going to be better.
All right. So for that one, I'm going to go with Matt Stafford. Now I know even as a Packers fan, Matt Stafford is one of my favorite quarterbacks in the league. I often say he's a top 5 quarterback. A lot of people don't like when I say that. I think he's one of the most talented arms in the NFL. Doesn't get a lot of notoriety. So I think from a quarterback perspective, he will definitely play out better in LA with that defense, with their weapons, with Sean McVay. It's just so crazy. You could argue that Matt Stafford was like the 3rd best player in Lions franchise history. For them to trade him, I know they got a haul for him, but it's going to be weird seeing Stafford not in the Lions blue. But as a Packers fan, I'm also happy that we're replacing Stafford with Goff, because I don't think Goff is very good. So benefits the Packers in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was time for Stafford to move on. I think he just needed to change his scenery, and I think Goff needed to change his scenery too. So I actually think this trade is going to benefit both of the players. As far as the teams, I mean, we're just going to have to wait and see. But guys, just a little interesting fact here. So I know Jared Goff pretty well, and have been watching him closely because of the fact that the year that he was drafted first overall, that pick was originally the Titans' first overall pick. Now, the Rams traded a blockbuster trade of picks to move up and grab Jared Goff. So, if you add in this trade that they just did for Matt Stafford, plus the picks that they traded up to get Goff in the first place, that means they have now traded Austin Johnson, Jonnu Smith, Jack Conklin, Derrick Henry, Corey Davis, 2 first-round picks, and a third-round pick to end up with Matt Stafford. Now, no player, in my opinion, is worth that much, except maybe Patrick Mahomes, but even then, that is a major haul to be getting to this point.
They definitely made a mistake there with trading all that to get Jared Goff, but no one thought that was going to be the case, and he did actually lead them to a Super Bowl. It's just amazing how the mighty have fallen. But I think the Stafford thing is they still know that their window is open, and Stafford, I think, also is a better quarterback than Goff, so that's them trying to salvage a Super Bowl out of this. But they could be really trashing their roster for the next how many years with not having that many top draft picks. It concerns me in the long run, but this seemed like a short-term gain kind of move, no doubt.
Well, speaking of not having first-round draft picks, now I'm not 100%. I don't have the stats in front of me, but I believe since the Goff pick and now after this trade, the Rams haven't and won't draft in the first round till 2024. Because they've traded so many first-round picks away. And you're right. It's crazy if you look back on the players that the Titans were able to acquire via that trade. That's just as much props to their scouting department for finding players, getting Derrick Henry in the second round, getting Jack Conklin early in the first round, but he wasn't the first tackle taken. There was some great players, good scouting department, but the Rams, I don't know. It's a weird strategy to like not want young first round talents, but you're right. Their window is still open. It's almost like we're tired of playing the lottery in the draft and just want to get players that we know can actually play in the NFL.
But it's just really interesting to me because, Matt Stafford has had pieces around him before. I understand that it is a team sport. You have to base it off the team, the coaches, and all that, and everything comes into effect. But Matt Stafford has had Calvin Johnson before. He had Kenny Galladay. He had some good people that he could throw to. He's had some good offensive pieces in the past, and he's never really been able to make any kind of a playoff run, a deep playoff run, or do anything really that impressive. Yet Jared Goff has been to a Super Bowl, and just this year he had his team rolling. No, he wasn't putting up crazy offensive stats that would blow your mind, but he was doing enough to win games. And in the playoffs, he had to step in with a broken thumb and pins in his hand and everything else, and still led a victory against the Seahawks, who were one of the favorites coming into the season in the first place. I really don't think that Matt Stafford is really that much better than Jared Goff, in my opinion.
Well, I don't know if Matt Stafford's ever had a coach like Sean McVay, or if Matt Stafford's ever had a defense like the Rams have right now, even. And this Rams defense isn't as good as it was a few years ago, I don't think. So I think there's a much better supporting cast around Stafford outside of his offensive weapons, but his offensive weapons are almost as strong as he's had. The only person that's above and beyond is Calvin Johnson. I think this is going to be a positive move, and you're going to see Stafford potentially have a resurgence kind of a year when that offense with an offensive mastermind and a better defense around him. I think that was the big thing that was stopping him from a run. Even when they had Calvin Johnson, they were a one-trick pony. Throw it up to Calvin. Sure, he can catch balls between three guys, but that's all they had.
Yeah, when they had Calvin, their running backs were Javid Best, CJ Spiller, not great other assets. You mentioned Kenny Galladay. He's looked great his rookie year. Then he's been battling injuries the last few years. They had the Matt Patricia experience. The Lions know how to get, frustrate players, lose their top talent. They're a pretty sorry franchise. I think Matt Stafford, like, I think he's going to win MVP in 2 years. As long as he's still with the Rams and doesn't get hurt, I think he'll be the MVP in 2 years. That's how much, again, I'll let you know at the top, I'm biased towards Matt Stafford. I think this marriage is perfect. I think we saw the Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan offense. We've seen what it can do for quarterbacks. We've seen what it's made Jimmy G look like. We've seen what it made Kirk Cousins look like. Just these average quarterbacks. And then this year, we saw what that same offense can do with an elite level quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. Now, I'm not saying Matt Stafford is elite like Aaron Rodgers, but he is definitely better than Kirk Cousins, Jimmy G. I think this is a great move. Now, did the Rams give up a lot? Yes, but they also had to get rid of Jared Goff's contract, and the Lions were brave enough to take that on. So I think it works out for both teams, but I'm really excited for Matt Stafford in LA.
Yeah, Cody. And you know what? One person that you mentioned, I mean, let's just go ahead and move on to our next headline. One person that you mentioned was Kirk Cousins, and there is actually rumors swirling around him as well. The 49ers are showing interest in Kirk Cousins. They've apparently already made offers, but the Vikings have declined unless they get a first-round pick. What do you guys think of this move? Is Kirk Cousins really that much better than Jimmy G?
Well, I think you could argue that Kirk Cousins' best years were in Washington with Kyle Shanahan. And Kyle Shanahan knew Kirk Cousins. So I understand why he would want that guy. He was a part of the team that drafted him. He was part of his development. They have a good working relationship. Now, is he really that much better? He's probably better if the games are played at 1 o'clock. If the games are played in prime time, I don't really know. But please, let this happen. Let the 49ers give up some picks because the Vikings are up and down with drafting. But let's go into 2021 with the NFC North quarterbacks being Aaron Rodgers, Mitch Trubisky, Jimmy G, and Jared Goff. As a Packers fans, that would be so beautiful. It'd almost be like just give us the division. We'd probably end up not even winning it because that's how our luck goes. But that would be some juicy competition that the Packers should feast on if Kirk Cousins gets out of there for Jimmy G.
Well, another potential quarterback option for the 49ers if they don't give up that first-round pick for Kirk Cousins is apparently Derek Carr. Apparently, there's been a lot of interest for Derek Carr swirling around, and there's some rumors that if they do come to a deal and move Carr, they're going to be a front runner for Deshaun Watson. I don't know if I've ever seen an offseason with this much quarterback movement, but this is entertaining. This is almost like we're playing Madden here in the actual NFL.
Oh, it's crazy. I remember Schefter put out a tweet about a week ago, saying that this offseason is so crazy for quarterbacks that out of all 32 teams, there's really only 10 teams whose quarterbacks are for sure for next season. Now, that's not to say that only 10 quarterbacks are going to return to their teams, but only 10 quarterback positions are locked up right now. Pretty much every team at this point has a little bit of quarterback controversy or questions, players talking about being traded or moved or draft picks. It is absolutely crazy for quarterbacks. And I mean, even 7 hours ago, there was rumors based off of some texts that were leaked by his wife that Andrew Luck might be returning this year to the Colts. Now, again, these are just rumors. Odds are that the rumors will fall through and it's not true, but it's worth discussing. Andrew Luck could come back. Kirk Cousins could be on the move. Derek Carr could be on the move. Who the hell is going to start for the Eagles this year? It's going to be really interesting.
We also missed another one in the NFC least, and that's Dak Prescott is also in a contract year. He's going to be a free agent. You never know what's going to happen there, too.
I think it would be in his best interest to hit the free agent market. With this many teams that are up in the air about their quarterback and the stats that he put up to start this past year, I understand he's coming off an injury, but I think if he declined any Cowboys offers, tested the free agent waters, I think he would get a ridiculous contract offer that is a lot higher than anything he deserves. I think it is his best move to go into free agency.
See, I think Dallas is going to franchise tag him before that
I can
happens.
see it.
So,
and that could also facilitate a trade too. You never really know.
It could facilitate a trade, but I do think he will get franchise tagged. But you're right. There's so many quarterbacks that are up in the air. Now, I will say that Schefter's tweet was, it should have been 11. People need to calm down. Aaron Rodgers isn't going anywhere. But that's another debate for another day. But it is crazy how, I don't know if it's because the cap number is expected to drop, but we've never seen an off season where so many quarterbacks are on the move, and then back to Derek Carr, maybe Mariota will get another start, after Carr went out he looked pretty good and deserves another shot, and he's under contract, so maybe they move on for Carr for a guy like that, reverse Ryan Tannehill situation out in Las Vegas, not Oakland. But man, at least
I would love to see him get another
sure.
shot. I think he deserves it, especially after this season where he did come in for that game and he looked really exciting. Granted, he did have a couple bad throws, but anytime you're a backup that's stepping in when you're not expecting it on a brand new team, you're going to have some hiccups. But I think he looked exciting. I think he looked fun, and I would love to see him get another shot somewhere else or in Vegas.
I think that because of all this movement, we should do a little bit of a challenge here and predict who's going to be the starting quarterback for every single team next year and see who gets the most right.
Absolutely. We can definitely do that. I mean, look forward to it in the offseason. We have a long offseason, so maybe next week, once the Super Bowl is over, maybe that's a little fun we could have.
Yeah, I was going to say, one thing's for sure, this offseason is going to be quite exciting. The Couch GMs, we're not going anywhere. We're going to talk football all season, keep you up to date. George, I love the idea with the possible challenge, predict how many quarterbacks, see who, right. It's a great idea. And then before we get to the big game, just a quick reminder, the NFL Awards show is Saturday. We made all our predictions for the final shows on last week's episode. Make sure you check that out. But guys, it's time. It's time to talk about the game we've all waited for all season long. A lot of us didn't think we'd get here. The Super Bowl is this Sunday. It's the Chiefs versus the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers get to host a home playoff or a home Super Bowl. But did you guys see that they can't even use the ship for cannons after touchdown?
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense because that makes it more of a home field advantage for the Bucs, and you can't really give any kind of unfair advantage any more than you're already going to get by playing in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, it's tough because it's not like all the teams have an opportunity to host a home Super Bowl like Tennessee. Well, Tennessee might because Nashville's growing so rapidly, but like Green Bay, Buffalo, Jacksonville, like those small market teams are probably never going to host a Super Bowl.
Jacksonville
So
actually, I think, has hosted Super Bowls. Yeah, they did, because the Eagles Super Bowl in 2004 that they lost was in Jacksonville.
okay, so Jacksonville's in Florida.
Yeah.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And they're still big
But
enough.
no,
But
you're totally right. Most of the North teams will never see a Super Bowl. The only reason New York got one is because it was part of their deal when they built the new stadium. So you're right.
yeah, so I can understand see why they're trying to keep it like a level field, but at the same time, like everyone knows the Super Bowl location at the start. The Bucks worked hard to get there. They won 3 games on the road in the playoffs. To be able to say we get to have a Super Bowl in our home field kind of feels a little. They get a little riled by taking away the cannons, but just a little fun fact: there are no cannons for touchdowns for Bucks players. But the game is Chiefs favored by 3. The over under is 56. Guys, how excited are you?
I wish I could say I was more excited. I mean, we are huge football fans. We wait all year for this moment. Um, but it's a little disappointing, in my opinion, because it feels like every year we watch Tom Brady in a Super Bowl, and I'm just kind of tired of seeing it. And I feel like the Chiefs are that next team. I think that Patrick Mahomes will be that guy that's in every Super Bowl for the next 10 years. And I think it would have been nice to see some different teams in it. Now, I know Aaron Rodgers has won a Super Bowl in the past, but I would have loved to see him versus Josh Allen, Bills versus Packers. I thought that would have been a much more exciting Super Bowl, but you know what? It didn't happen. We can't dwell on the past, and with us being here at this point, you still got to just love it for the game and the fact that we actually made it to this point in this season when nobody really thought we'd make it through. It's exciting. So I'm happy that the game is here, but I'm more happy that the Titans are going to be able to start building for next season very soon.
I mean, I agree with feels like we see Tom Brady in the Super Bowl every single year. And I've been trying to flush that negativity out because obviously it's the last game we have of the season. You got to sit back and enjoy it. I'm still heavy on the Chiefs bandwagon I don't think they're going to be as dominant as you make them sound. I think they're going to be hanging around in the playoffs for a long time, but I don't think they're going to be in the Super Bowl every single year like Tom Brady was doing and making it old. But for now, I just hope they beat Tom Brady.
Yeah, I'm with you. I hope they beat Tom Brady as well. I'm excited for this game. It is interesting, with the whole pandemic and thing. You're not hearing too many about big Super Bowl parties or what some people look forward to. But there's, like we said, we're just happy to have football. And, speaking of the pandemic, the Chiefs almost had a COVID scare this week as the barber who was cutting players' hair tested positive. They got the results mid haircut for one poor center of the Kansas City Chiefs. Thankfully, though, they were all wearing their masks. There was some close contact, but no one has tested positive, so it doesn't look like it should impact the game. We escaped a big one there, but how do you think they finished that guy's haircut? Someone else did. He just shave it off, or is that guy walking around with a half cut head of hair?
Oh, I'm sure somebody else is finishing that off. I mean, these guys make millions of dollars. They can afford any kind of barber to come in and fix up that hair.
I hope that he didn't get it fixed, but then somehow hides it and no one sees it until the Super Bowl, and he like pulls his helmet off after a touchdown. It's like, oh my God, he's got half a head of hair. No, but it definitely got finished, I'm sure. But anybody who has Twitter, jump over to Daniel Kilgore's Twitter and check out his profile picture. He had a little bit of fun with it and posted a Photoshop picture of him with half a head of hair just to take some make some light of the situation.
Yeah, and some other key notes for this game before we get into breaking it down. Antonio Brown and Antone Winfield Jr. They didn't play in the NFC Championship game, are expected to play, and then the Chiefs are expected to get Sammy Watkins back. So some key pieces, or maybe not some key pieces, but some good quality depth pieces for the game. So, guys, I just want to get your overall opinion on the game, and then give me a player to watch on offense, either Bucks or the Chiefs.
Well, I'm going to start off by saying that I do think the Chiefs are going to win. I think that they are going to be, I think they're going to be too offensively dominant. I think that both teams are going to struggle on defense a little bit. I know the Buccaneers have looked pretty good on defense so far in this playoffs, but I think that there's no real way to shut down the Chiefs' offense. The only way to beat them is by outscoring them, and I just don't think that Tom Brady at this point in his career can gunsling the way that Patrick Mahomes can. So I think that the Chiefs are going to pull it off. As far as a player to watch, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that, I mean, maybe it's not that big of a limb, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be the guy to watch because I know it's been all Darrell Williams this playoffs. Edwards-Helaire did miss the first game, and last week it was all Darrell Williams, even though Edwards-Helaire was healthy. But I just feel like the rookie is electric. He has some talent. And I feel like the Bucs defense is going to come in knowing they're playing Mahomes and Kelsey and Hill, and they're really going to sell out to try to stop that pass game. I think it's going to open up some running lanes, and Andy Reid, being the tricky guy he is, I think he's going to hand it off to Clyde Edwards-Helaire a lot more, and I think he's actually going to have a surprisingly good game this week.
It almost confuses me to hear Andy Reid and handing the ball off more in the same sentence, being an Eagles fan for as long as I was watching him. But I agree. I think the only way that you beat the Chiefs is by outscoring them. There's not really any slowing them down. I think they're the only offense who is defense proof. And I don't think the Bucs can do that. So I'll go out on a limb also right away and say I think the Chiefs are going to win this game, but it's going to be high scoring, I think, both ways. And I like your idea of not picking one of the normal guys to be that player to watch on offense, but my guy is going to be Mecole Hardman. He is very fast. He's not quite Tyreek Hill, but he's very fast. They like to use him in some tricky little plays. He might run a couple reverses to him. You're going to see a lot of people eyeing up Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, and all of a sudden Mecole Hardman's going to get a one-on-one. He's going to get the ball, and he's going to break it for a big score. I think he's going to be a guy that a lot of people forget about, but he's going to be big in this game.
I like both your guys as players to watch for this game. I do think it will be an exciting one. I know the forecast is looking like a lot of rain, so I'm hoping it is only Wednesday at the time of recording this. I'm hoping that changes and it doesn't become like a slop fest and slows everything down and causes a bunch of mistakes and ruins the product on the game. But I'm actually going to pick my player to watch on the Buccaneers side of the ball. And, it might be a star player, but I'm actually intrigued to watch Rob Gronkowski. I saw that something that completely blew my mind. He's the same age as Travis Kelce. That blew my mind.
Yeah.
One,
What?
I feel like
Yeah, Kelsey is in
pretty-
the prime of his career, and Gronk just came out of retirement, yet they are the same age. Yeah.
they're both 31, which is I thought Gronk was pushing 40, but I think it's up to him to have a big game. We know Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, they have the offensive weapons. But in key moments, I expect Brady to go to the guy he trusts the most, and we all know that's Rob Gronkowski. So he's going to be my player to watch. I think he's going to, for the Buccaneers to be able to pull off the upset, I'd imagine he'd have to have a big catch or two. Definitely a player, in my opinion, that you should keep an eye on because he's at least going to give you a cool dance if he scores because that's just his personality.
And you know what, Cody? I'm going to actually piggyback off your pick right there, and I'm going to throw out one bonus player real quick just to even up the score. I'm going to pick a Bucs player as well, and my Bucs player to watch is not one of the star players. It is Tyler Johnson. He is the receiver for the Bucs, rookie. He is a speedster. Scotty Miller, we heard that he was talking trash on Tyreek Hill, saying he's just as fast or faster, but honestly, don't underestimate Tyler Johnson's speed. He's been used more than Scotty Miller has been in the last few weeks, and this guy is a 50-yard touchdown waiting to happen. He is one vert waiting to happen, and I honestly believe he's going to score a touchdown in this game. I truly do.
Is it because of his name?
I mean, it's a great first name, let me just say.
Okay. Well, I mean, before we move on to more about the outcome of this game, why don't we each talk about a player to watch on defense? Cody, go ahead, start us off.
All right, so for the player to watch on defense, I'm going to stick picking the Bucs players and a guy I'm going to keep my eye on throughout the game is Jason Pierre-Paul. He's had a little bit of a resurgence the last 2 years in Tampa Bay. He's playing great right now. And he has some experience in the Super Bowl against Tom Brady. Now, he didn't have as many. He has less fingers now than he did when they played in the Super Bowl, but he's
Ouch.
still playing great. I think it's going to be, especially with the loss of Eric Fisher in the AFC Championship game, going up against the guy that's going to replace him at left tackle. I think he has an opportunity to be a difference maker in this game. Start getting Patrick Mahomes running, start getting pressure, start forcing some throws that maybe he wouldn't make if he had a clean pocket. Jason Pierre-Paul is a guy I think you should keep a close eye on.
I'll flip it back to the Chiefs side again for my pick here, and I'm going to go with the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu. And I think there's going to be a lot of passing the ball to try to keep up with the Chiefs in this game. And Tyrann Mathieu is a big ball hawk back there in the secondary. He could get a pick or two of Tom Brady in this game, and that could be all that the Chiefs offense needs to put enough separation and win this game. So I'm going to say Tyrann Mathieu. He's been there before, and he'll be there again. He's going to be the player to watch on defense.
It's a great pick, and he'll probably also be matched up a lot with Rob Gronkowski, so maybe you should watch both mine and George's player.
That's a great point. That could be a big matchup and could end up being a matchup that decides the game.
Well, guys, I'm going to go with Devin White. I know it's the obvious choice, but for my defensive player to watch, he is just so fun to watch. He is a game wrecker, and I think he will do just that in this Super Bowl. I think he's going to get in Mahomes' face. I would say that he might force some bad throws, but even the ugly throws from Mahomes seem to still look good. But I still think that he is going to make his presence known. I really like Devin White in this game, guys.
Yeah, I think Devin White and Levante David, they're probably the best linebacking core, so I love that pick. Devin White is so fast, so fun to watch. It's a player that everybody wishes was on their team. That's for sure. But, if we're going to talk about the players to watch, we also got to talk about the X factor. The guy might surprise people. Maybe it's Harrison Butker. I don't know. Who do you guys got as your X factor?
I have a tough choice deciding between two. But I think I'm going to go with the guy that broke out last year in the playoffs and is going to play a big part in this game as well. And that's going to be the other safety for the Kansas City Chiefs, and that's Daniel Sorensen. Sorensen is not only great in the secondary, but he's a really good run-stuffing, play-in-the-box safety. And he made so many big plays in the playoffs last year. It was a big reason why that defense took the step up and got them to the Super Bowl. And I think that he just seems to shine in the spotlight. He's going to do it again this year.
All right. Well, my X factor in this game is actually going to be Georgia's player to watch, but for a different reason, and that is Mecole Hardman. I think that his presence in the pass game and in that offense is definitely well known. But we did see him fumble a punt this past game, and it ended up turning him on, and he got electric, and he really went off after that fumble. And I think that he is going to have a huge presence in the special teams game this week. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him actually have a return for a touchdown. He's got so much speed; he can just be gone in the blink of an eye. I think he's going to be the X factor in this one. That's special teams for the Chiefs.
Yeah, and the Bucs haven't been great this season or in the playoffs, against punt returns. None were taken back for a touchdown, but I think there were 240-plus ones when they played against the Saints. So I definitely think special teams could be the X factor there with Mecole Hardman. And I'm going to go back to the Bucs for my X factor, and it's going to be Leonard Fournette. Now, he's had an up and down season with them, healthy scratches sometimes, and now he appears to be the starter in the playoffs. And it's going to be up to him to keep the chains moving if the Buccaneers want a shot at this game. Whether it's catching balls out of the backfield, getting some good runs on first and second down, third down, keep those chains moving. And especially going back to the weather, if it's a rainy day, he's going to have to be able to hang on to the ball, which Leonard Fournette does have a little bit of, fumbling issues. Doesn't catch the ball as well as Bruce Arians might make you think he does. So Leonard Fournette, he has a lot of touchdowns this playoffs, but I'm not too worried about him scoring as much as I am him protecting the ball and, keeping Patrick Mahomes off the field, trying to get the run game going. Him versus Chris Jones is going to be a matchup I think that not a lot of people are talking about, but could be a potential deciding factor. So that is why Leonard Fournette is my X factor.
I could definitely see that. I mean, I think that if it does rain heavily, the run game is going to be way more important than we're making it sound. And I like the Bucks running backs, but I kind of like a lot of the people up front for the Chiefs. And my other potential X factor was going to be Tano Passanio. Don't ask me how to spell that because there's a K and a bunch of other S's and O. I don't know in there, but him along with the rest of that defensive line, Chris Jones, Frank Clark, are gonna have to stuff up the run, and I don't really have a lot of faith in the Bucks running game. I mean, they had a couple of big games during the season. We knew fantasy implications, but I like that Chiefs front to be able to stop it if they see it coming.
Just speaking of, I know you guys, both picked the Chiefs at the top, but let's make our picks a little bit more interesting for this one because there's only one game. Give me your final score prediction and give me a score. Like, what do you think? Are we going to hit the over under 56? It's going to be a low scoring game. It's going to be a blowout. Come down to a field goal. What are your thoughts?
Well, Cody, first off, you did talk about the over-under, and I just wanted to make a quick note to all of our bettors out there that this is like Christmas Day if you like sports betting. It is exciting. There's so many things you can bet on with this game. Every little inch of this game can be exciting for you. Just to name a few, there is the coin toss. You can bet on whether will it be heads or tails, which team will win the coin toss. You can bet on if the first play is going to be a run or a pass. You can bet on any trick plays, if an offensive lineman will catch a touchdown. You can bet on the over-under on jersey number of first touchdown. There is a doink special going on DraftKings right now that you will bet that any extra point or field goal hits an upright. There's always betting on the over-under time length of the national anthem to start the game. Guys, there's so much to bet on. Have some fun. Go win some money. But back to your point here, Cody, I'm going to go with the Chiefs to win this game, like I said, and I think that it'll be close, relatively close throughout. Would not be surprised to see the Chiefs have some kind of a comeback because they love doing that in the playoffs. But I think that they're going to have a score late that's going to put the game out of reach, and I think that the score is going to end 42-31 Chiefs.
Wow, that's high. That's
And you're
very
crushing
high.
that over. Pound that over, buddy.
Absolutely.
I mean, I was gonna go on the over as well, but I have a much closer game happening, and my score prediction is gonna be 34-31 Chiefs. Funny that we both picked 31 for the Bucks there without even collaborating beforehand. But I think it's gonna come down to one of those last drive. Either the Chiefs are down and score that touchdown to go up, or they're gonna be a tie game and they get the field goal to win it. It's gonna be 34-31 Kansas City.
Yeah, I don't think it's a surprise, and you picked a push for the people since we're talking so much about betting. You picked a push, so that doesn't help too many people out for betting, George. But
No.
I'm gonna go, even though I picked a bunch of Buccaneers and the players to watch and the X factors, I am gonna go with the Chiefs. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but I know I don't think Andy Reid's lost more than 3 times off of a bye, so I'm gonna go with that. I've thought that the Buccaneers got lucky or didn't actually beat the Saints. The Saints beat themselves. I didn't think they beat the Packers. The Packers beat themselves. Maybe I'm just hating too hard on the Buccaneers, but I think they'll keep it close. I think the refs will keep it close. I'm trying to do the math quick in my head. I think I actually have it as an under. So I'm going to go 28-24 with the Chiefs winning by 4 points. So would be slightly under.
Mhm.
But we're all picking the Chiefs, which I don't think is a surprise. We got a little bit off their bandwagon at the beginning of the playoffs when we forgot how good they were. But after the last few weeks, it's hard to pick against them.
And for all you stat heads out there, Andy Reid is 18-3 in regular season off a bye and 5-2 in the playoffs off a bye.
Yeah, I mean, Andy Reid is one of the best head coaches in the league right now. George, I know you hate hearing that, being an Eagles fan and seeing him fail to win a Super Bowl with while wearing green. But honestly, I would put Andy Reid up there with any other head coach in the league right now. I think that he is definitely the better head coach in this matchup, and you can even give the X factor to him in this game because I know you could have the Tom Brady versus Mahomes, you could do the offense versus the defense, but if you do Andy Reid against pretty much any other coach, he's going to have the edge in this one. And he definitely does in this Super Bowl.
Yeah, I agree. And it's also fun to point out that the Chiefs defensive coordinator, Steve Spagnuolo, was with the Giants when they beat Brady in the Super Bowl. So I feel like the Chiefs coaching staff is that extra advantage. Is there any last things you mention about the game that we haven't hit on? Guys, this could be the last game we're going to talk about. We'll probably talk about a recap of it, but make sure you get it out there because this is probably the last, preview we're going to do for a while. So any last words?
I'm excited for the halftime show. I know it's not football related, but you know what? The Weeknd, they've been putting out some good songs recently, and I think that they could really put on a good show. I heard that the Weeknd actually put up, I think it was $3 million of their own money to help push this halftime show to be even bigger. I know they usually get a big budget for the show itself, but they actually put up an extra $3 million of their own money. I'm excited for what they're going to pull off. I'm hoping that it's a good all-around Super Bowl. I want to see a close game. I don't want to see the refs impact the game too much. Good halftime show, and more importantly, amazing commercials too. Let's end 2020, the 2020 season with a bang.
Not a boom like you end every podcast?
Oh no, that's just for me. That's not for the NFL.
Gotcha. All right. Well, you did mention commercials, so unless George is going to cut me off because he wants to get one last word out about the game, let's have a little fun. We'll call it a debate, but I don't think any of us are going to debate. We're going to end up reminiscing. But you mentioned some great commercials, and I don't know if you've seen some of the big guns like Anheuser-Busch and Budweiser. They've decided to put their money that they would normally put into commercials into donating into pandemic relief, which is a great way to give back. So we're going to but the commercials might be different this year. So let's reflect on the best Super Bowl commercials of all time. Now, for transparency, the three of us are in our mid-20s, so commercials that you loved in the 80s for our older audience out there. We might just mention them, might name drop them, might not think they were that great one because we've only seen them on YouTube and not during the Super Bowl. But George, I'll let you kick it off with your favorite.
I'll go ahead and try to name drop a couple just to start, a couple of the older ones. There was the old Apple 1984 commercial back when Apple was still this growing little company. And there was the Coca-Cola commercial of the handing a Coke to a fan in the tunnel. But I'm between two, and since this isn't a hard debate, I'm going to mention both anyway. And that between the NFL's 50th anniversary commercial from a few years ago, which went through a whole bunch of big moments in NFL history. I was just sitting there taking it all in as a football fan for that one. And the other one would have to be the Shining Mountain Dew commercial from, I think it was 2 years ago.
Great picks, especially the NFL 100 commercial. That one was definitely one of my favorites of all time. Now, Super Bowls commercials are a hard thing to debate because there's so many different kinds. I mean, you have your informative, you have your funny, you have your sad, you have all kinds of different commercials. Toyota always seems to ruin their commercial and makes terrible commercials. That's a shout out at you, Toyota. Get better. They just bother me because their commercials will be like a firefighter running into a building and saving a puppy, and everyone's like, wow, that was amazing. And then it's like Toyota. Has nothing to do with Toyota at all. They just try to do something cool. But getting on to the best commercials, first I have to give a shout out to Budweiser. On the sad front, the puppy love commercial where a puppy gets lost and starts coming back to the farm and gets surrounded by wolves, and those Clydesdale horses come save the day. Man, that's a tearjerker every time. But my favorite Super Bowl commercial has to come from Doritos. And it is a commercial where a woman is giving birth and the husband is standing over her. And every time he moves the Dorito chip, he can see the baby inside the belly moving. And then he throws a chip and the baby launches out of the woman. It is hysterical, and it is definitely my favorite commercial ever.
Wow. I forgot about that one, but now that that was a great job explaining it because now I remember it vividly. And your jobs of explaining also got me to feel a little emotional about the Budweiser one. Man,
I didn't want to go
there's
too
so
into depth with that one, or I would have started tearing up here on the podcast. And it is not that kind of podcast.
definitely not that kind of podcast. We like to have fun here. And there's a lot of great ones. Man, there's so many that we're probably not even missing. Like I love the old Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, McDonald's commercial. But one that just resonated with me, I couldn't even tell you. Okay, this is gonna be sad because I'm gonna say it's the best commercial, but I couldn't even tell you who it was for. I think it was for Hyundai. But Smart Park, my Boston accent isn't great, so I apologize for anyone out there that's not how you say Smart Park. But that commercial made me laugh. I watched it like multiple times. I'm pretty sure I retweeted on Twitter. It's just I don't know why. Maybe it was because we were Chris Evans, Captain America, big Marvel fan. He was in it, but there was just so many stars that just kept popping up, and it was such a simple idea about a car that could park itself, but for some reason that one resonated with me. And I just want to give a shout out to, again, I think it was Doritos. Doritos normally kills it with these, but the Sam Elliott dancing mustache from last year, that was a
Yes.
classic.
Yes.
That went viral, so had to shout that one out. There's just so many good Super Bowl commercials, and again, oh man, I could go on forever just looking up and thinking about all these great commercials.
I mean, I want to give a
Can,
shout out
does
to Doritos in general because for years there, I don't believe they do it anymore, but for years there, they actually had a submit your own commercial campaign where pretty much anybody could make their own Doritos commercial and submit it, and Doritos would pick their favorite one and it would air it during the Super Bowl. And that was such a huge campaign, and it was so funny being able to go onto Doritos.com and just seeing what hilarious things that your everyday people like us would come up with, not just a marketing department or anything, but I mean, the three of us with our video backgrounds, I mean, it was just so fun to watch those and see what people could come up with. And I really wish they would bring that back because that was fun. That was hilarious.
I agree. I wish maybe they bring that back and we get a Couch GMs version of a Doritos podcast. I think if they do, we have to do that. So I'm just going to run down a list. I pulled up a quick list of some favorites of all time that we did mention that I think are worth mentioning. The Odell Beckham, Eli Manning does the dancing spin
Dancing one,
commercial.
yes.
yeah.
That's a great one. I know George, and we're talking about it a little bit before the show off air. E-Trade Baby.
E-Trade baby. Yep.
There's just
Classic.
Bud Light always kills it. Dilly Dilly, even
Dilly, that's a big one. Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean that was actually a commercial from before the Super Bowl, I believe, that they just kept making sequels of. But yes, definitely.
and it's fun too for like the beer commercials that were like, was it Bud Light? I think it was that they're like, and we don't use corn syrup, or Bud Light uses corn syrup. I forget which one it was, but like that they were even like battling out against competitors in the biggest stage. But you know, it's so weird because like most days I don't even like watching regular TV because of commercials. They're my least favorite part of the NFL. But when the Packers aren't in the Super Bowl, it's like one of the things I'm most excited for.
What are you guys' thoughts on the when Tide was trying to tie into the actual game with their commercials?
It's different, I think, is what you have to give them credit for. I mean, some of them were funny, some of them weren't, where it seemed like every commercial, I mean, it wasn't just the game. It was like you would be watching an Old Spice commercial and they'd be riding backwards on a horse and then suddenly they'd put on a clean shirt and they'd be like, it's a Tide ad. And it was just every commercial somehow tied into Tide. And I just thought it was creative. I liked it. I mean, I'm always down for something new and interesting. If you just have the same kind of ideas every year, it's going to get pretty stale and boring. So whether you liked the commercials or not, I gotta give a little shout out to them. I mean, that was great creative marketing.
Completely agree. Well said. Well, I think that's probably enough of us rambling about commercials. So, as always, thanks again for tuning in to this week's episode of the Couch GMs podcast. Please like and subscribe if you're listening on YouTube. Leave a comment and review if you're listening on your favorite podcasting app. And drop a comment on what your favorite Super Bowl commercial is below the post.
Yeah, like Cody said, tell us what your favorite Super Bowl post or Super Bowl commercial was. Let us know who you think's going to win this game. Basically, what I'm trying to say is get involved. Just get involved with the podcast, guys. We don't have to be the only Couch GMs out there. We know there's a little bit of Couch GM in you, so feel free to jump on in and get involved.
And get your friends involved as well. The more Couch GMs we have out there, the more fun it is for everybody. So thank you once again for listening to the Couch GMs podcast. For Tyler Snyder and Cody Roadcap, I'm George Kerth, and we will catch you all next week. Happy Super Bowl, everyone.
Boom.